It's 3 a.m. Pill Talk, and we're back with Nathan Handran talking about the programs and systems that kind of drive our sexual behavior. If I'm putting that right, that's
It was the sexual strategies and the societies they build.
there we go. Sexual strategies and the societies they build. I like that a lot better. So this is part two in a three-part series. Um, can you catch us up? Kind of catch us up on what
Um,
we covered last week? A real brief summary.
yeah. So last week, we went over where the kind of idea starts, basically using animals in how they operate, into theorize the applied watching the system and the consequences of doing something. So
Okay.
one of the main that pretty much is what our last week was, just the start of. We ended it really kind of covering the sexual strategies, like the where you don't have parental involvement or by one or both parents, and kind of that aspect.
And how it kind of
Um
shapes our offspring, right?
and how, and yeah, and then which shapes ultimately society, because society is basically shaped by the people you put it in
All right.
or build it from. But and then ended it not finishing really the harem style, the consequences of that, the benefits of it, and
And what
in that aspect.
and how do we describe the harem style?
Um, well, we haven't finished it. We
Well,
started
how
it
would we?
last episode, but
So
we
instead
haven't
of
finished it.
calling it the harem style, we would say several females with the same male, right?
That's the harem style. That's
Yeah.
we didn't change the word. That
Yeah, just to
um
kind of catch people up so they
oh,
know.
okay. I mean, it's I believe that was pretty common. Anyway, so we go and we then see how human beings are not just a one sexual market or one sexual strategy species. We are we have multitude of sexual strategies depending on certain environments and those conditions. And then we are using the common spotted. I always forget and butcher these guys' names. The common side splotched lizard. Um, and they are a specific species that have a kind of rock paper scissor uh, direction with how they operate, and seeing that aspect, you can kind of see how humans, or at least the math, how it affects us,
Okay.
because when you kind of boil everything down, just it's just numbers.
Okay. And we can also kind of look at our own history too and see
Yes,
how
yeah,
that correlates.
yes, and then we overcame or covered, because the last kind of section of American history was the free love and sex rock and roll, the sexual freedom, those movements mirrored the lack the what's the word I'm looking for, the lack of parenting, the lack of parental involvement,
Okay.
because of those systems. And
Okay.
that was again tap touched on last episode. Again, there's a lot. It's very difficult to cover just within an hour.
Yeah. Yeah. So we started it out, and I think we ended talking about porn and effects and its effects on society,
Yes.
which was I'm really interested. Maybe we'll dig into something else like that after we cover some more of these or sexual strategies. So let's get started at part two. You ready?
All right, ready for part two.
Yes, sir. So we were talking about the harem style, the multiple,
Yes.
and we kind of can see that there have been some studies or some statistics that we've looked at, and that's kind of where we're headed right now. There's a certain percentage of females who would rather share one guy with the resources right now than be
Well,
with
yeah.
a guy with a lower socioeconomic status.
Well, so yeah, so like before the sexual revolution is kind of what they're calling it, where everything, they were free love. Um, Before that, you had kind of the silent generation, and even that was primarily more common to be the monogamist and the one-on-one. So like, just kind of like the common side blotched lizard, they kind of get into of popularity. One will be none of them will be extinct, like we talked in the last episode. They'll just sort of one will kind of rise in popularity and then will shrink and go through.
Yeah, and the three
We're
strategies we're
looking,
talking, the three strategies, so we can keep people
yeah,
kind
yeah.
of
The three
along.
main
What are the
strategies you
three,
have.
what are the three main strategies?
So you have the three main strategies, which we're talking about is really the I don't have a it's not really polygamy. Well, it is kind of on both partners. It's not a setup where they're uh very structurally sound. It's that free love and rock and roll kind of aspect, and that's the best way to describe it. It where you have multiple partners. There's very which often turns into lack of parental protection and guidance. You can see it in the during the sexual evolution, then the latchkey error kids and the latchkey kids and things like that. So it matches when you do a behavior, it's gonna sprout those
So,
fruits whether
so
they're
our
good fruits or
three,
bad fruits, and
okay,
going forward.
so our three strategies would be, they would be,
So that's one would be the the very promiscuous free spirit, the harem structure, and then the one-on-one structure.
okay, so the harem, so we would have, let's, so that we're in layman's terms a little bit, so we would have just fuck buddies and
Yeah, there we go.
just having
Fuck
multiple fuck
buddies.
buddies. Hold on. So just having multiple fuck buddies and just kind of free love and all that, and just kind of sex the kind of the way that the last 20, 30 years or whatever, how the
Hookup culture, yeah.
yeah, the hookup culture, and then we would have the harem style would be several different women with the same man because he's got provisions, and
Yeah.
then the one on one would sort of be the serial monogamy, polygamy, but with an intact household or monogamy.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes. So yeah, so it'd be family nucleus, and then harem's kind of like in the middle of family nucleus and fuck buddies. But again, anyway, but you get it, and there's deviance even within them, those three, but those are typically our kind of our three guiding stars, and
Yeah.
then somewhere you fall in one of those, close to or similar to one of those three. Like,
Okay.
and animals do it too. You have like you see it in dolphin pods and their different behaviors, chimpanzees. You see them in gorillas. So you see it in ravens. And again, the smarter the animals they are, typically tend to lean on long-term partners in that. So there's a correlation from higher intelligence, wider range of emotions. The longer-term partner becomes more of a structure that's it's steadier and allows for higher levels of thinking.
So, so
Um,
do we generally see that reflected in higher intelligence species animals? Or
yes,
is,
yeah.
okay. Okay.
So I mean, even the yeah. There's some correlations to that. And again, it's just we're doing this podcast to really encourage everyone else to will go out and kind of look at their own stuff
Yeah.
and make their own opinion on it. So what's we're doing the harem thing, we the harem kind of structure where I think at least with how the current course is going, that's going to be in a higher fad. And I think one of the biggest derivative or the biggest driving factors is you have young girls who pretty much were raised with moms who were of the hookup culture, and there's a massive lack of provisions or security or certain things that they harshly are going to experience even more so as a kid, and then going through the bumps and rides and wanting to make sure that they're safe, more important than just having one partner to themselves.
Okay.
And I think maybe that's going to be one of the many driving hands pushing that direction, but maybe it's probably one of the stronger hands
And
pushing that direction.
that's pushing us out of here eventually, right? Or is that
Into. So basically we had the hookup culture, there was zero provision. You have basically all the either the lucky or the strongest are going to survive or become attractable males. Most of them are going to be pretty much have issues, underdeveloped, or even warped in some way due to certain events that open up into the free love and sex range
Okay.
as consequence. And the ones who are the few who can get into the positions of attraction, which again we're seeing with whether social media, a lot of people contribute it to it, but I think maybe social media not contributed, but just was gasoline on a system that was already coming into play.
Yeah, I like that.
That
I like that. Yeah.
because again, it just expressed, like if you do DNA tests and stuff like that, you can see this ebb and flow, and social media again, none of it doesn't, like, it shapes us, but a lot of it at times it just highlights what we already are.
Yeah,
It's kind of like, and yeah,
so so I've heard people say social media is ruining relationships, it's ruining marriages, and I think that I call bullshit on that every fucking time I hear that because I think we are ruining relationships and marriages. We just have an easier way to do it with social media. Like social media just became a different outlet for us to be able to do it. Because before social media, you had to get on the phone or you had to meet somebody at work at. Now we just have more, like you said, fuel to the fire because social media can't ruin anything. It's us ruining it. We're just using social media and we have more access to different options to it than we've ever
Y-
had.
yeah. It's another way you could say is social media simply just put tires on the vehicle and an
Yeah,
engine. So instead of us having to walk everywhere, we're now driving,
like
state lines and continents.
let's keep going with the vehicle
Okay.
analogies because I like those. I like those analogies because that
Well,
last
I'm
one,
glad.
yeah,
Um, and and so it just makes it easier to get around.
yeah,
Pun
yeah.
intended.
That was very
Um,
no pun intended, right?
well, no, it was intended.
Yeah, that was good. That was good. I like that. All right.
Okay, so basically, what we're going to be moving forward is unless you are specifically so so each of these styles, each of them being in fads, they need the culture and the environment to be accepting of them. They need to kind of be kind of pushed by everyone, and then kind of what's the word, fantasize, romanticize, some things like that.
Okay.
You have again those which I was talking about. You have media already doing series on sister wives, with which is almost unheard of. Like I remember kind of growing up where women were literally trying to escape the the religious groups that had sister wives or things like that, and there were some people getting out, some people chose, I mean, clearly they've kept going for so long they chose, but now it's becoming, it's less, I ironically less demonized, and it's becoming more and more sociable. It's becoming more and more, um what's a better word? It's acceptable. It's not this, and
Almost
which is weird
romantic.
too, because of the it's just coming at the tail end of this massive feminist movement. But the women are the ones pushing it,
Yeah.
or at least or at least highlighting it in a very what's fashionable way.
Okay.
Then you have, and then we touched it. You have the Tate states, and you have I mean, which were one of the most Google people in the world.
Yeah.
And again, they promote this, harem style strategies,
Yeah.
maximum amount of money, maximum amount of power and status, which you have to have in order for a harem style to work.
Yeah.
If you don't have status, you don't have power, you don't have the resources, the land, and everything else, like it don't work.
Yeah.
Um, which again, there's going because of kind of the food, all of the certain specific that reach out economy and things like that, the way things have been hitting for like the last 40 years,
Yeah.
it's kind of becoming the perfect storm.
Okay.
So that's really why I think the harem style is going to be at least acceptable.
Okay.
I know you want to promote the monogamy. It's
100%
best.
not.
It's the
Um,
civilization grows the best.
yeah.
In those circumstances, we get some of the best technology developed. We get those things. But when you do the harem style, we do get more reliable um, working systems. Like more people are able to develop quickly into working with each other because each brother, half brother, is almost kind of working with a different family. They learn competitive style that unless you're useful, you're useless, you're gone.
Okay.
Um, and then they have someone who basically has enough resources to kind of give everyone an even keel start. So then you have the stars or you have the best talent getting what they need to move forward.
Okay.
So individually, um, it allows, in a way, it sets it up for the monogamy later on,
Okay.
eventually.
Okay. And we
Um,
talked. So we talked last time. I think at the tail end of the last episode that way, right? So you had mentioned something which I really liked because I asked you if we were driving our own sexual cars. And I was asking if it was safe to say if we did that or not. And you said, well, we're driving our own cars, but we're not building a road. So one of the things I think we discussed at the tail end of our last episode was that one of the catalysts for the serial monogamy, the one man, one woman, however you put it, polygamy, I 100% fucking promote monogamy, but as a species, we've always been serial monogamy, somewhere in between serial monogamy and polygamy. Um, so one of the catalysts that push us into that is men seeing these other men get all the women, right? And
well, so if you go, so yes and no. So there's a certain threshold, like when they were doing neuroscience and they were dealing with lobsters and things like that. If a lobster just kept losing, kept losing, kept losing, it quits. It quits competing sexually.
okay,
So there's male lobsters where again you just have a pinnacle of male lobsters who typically don't either get to the threshold of losing or or they've what I mean, or they've just never lost,
okay,
always competing for the females, and they will be the only ones that breed. But then you have others who just had the negative chemical feedback enough, and then they just stop.
okay.
Um,
So
it,
what do you think the main driving factors would be that would push us from multiple women with one man who has all the provisions, or at least the status of provisions, that sort of thing.
it
What would push
like
us
well
into
it's his
more of a
kids.
traditional?
So if you have multiple guys going through and doing their harems, and they're all at they're reaching their status, and
Yeah.
they are able to take care of each individual woman as if their own family, and they're all on even keel.
Okay.
Then you have all their sons, however many they can have or don't, whatever. They have their sons, and then those guys will all typically, if it's a perfect world, they're going to be at some level even with everybody else, right?
Okay.
So really the next generation of guys and what skills they benefit and what develops through them in this environment are going to then produce the communities. If you have a bunch of brothers and you're all becoming neighbors and you have respect for each other and you guys are even keel, then that evenness is going to allow the one-on-one male, one-on-one female, or one male, one female style.
Okay.
Now,
So
and
it's more of a,
it's again very broad.
yeah.
There's
There's
a lot of
outlines
different
there.
things that can be different, and it's a very very boiled
Well down.
idea.
Yeah.
It's not even a boiled idea, not even boiled down, just boiled idea. Um,
That's attractive. All right. So instead of what I was saying was like guys were like, fuck that. We want to get women. It's more of a slower. It's more of a slower
it's slower.
process.
It's ultimately trying. One of the monogamous is the hardest environment to keep going without a safety net community.
Okay.
And
Everybody can
so,
believe that.
but the harem status was mostly just financial based. If you have the finances, then typically you can have that running.
Okay.
Um, and it kind of goes. into that aspect.
Okay.
And so with it, there's a lot of guys who want that, and if they're going to make a crap ton of money, they're going to do what they're going to do, and they're going to compete, and they're going to live this lifestyle. It's theirs to choose.
Yeah.
Um, and eventually, everything will just will go will even kill everything wants what's the word homeostasis.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
It'll find a balance.
Okay. Okay. I got
Um, But ultimately, I know with a lot of the talks, date stuff, it's because we're having a huge lack of marriage, lack of dating, lack of our birth rates are dropping, and a lot of that's kind of the reason why a lot of these shows are popping
you. Yeah.
and so going through just these different sexual strategies in the environment that they're building, um, to some degree before that communication and then understanding each of the other sexes would be something you would need to start on if you have like zero understanding, or you don't get it.
So
Both male and both woman and man should both try to understand the needs and the biology of who they actually want in their life.
okay.
you know
So
you want a car, you need to know how
yeah,
to maintain the car.
and we tend to like the path of least resistance.
Yeah. Um, that's more often to our deficit, not to um our benefit.
No, yeah, it's definitely
Um,
to our detriment. I wouldn't say yeah, yeah. It's okay. So how? All right. So what are we gonna dig into in this episode? Are we gonna finish up with the harem, the multiple females on
um,
harem?
We could. I mean, we could go through the structure of it. We can go the historical things and how it kind of worked. If you have like Asian cultures, like Attila the Hun, you usually had one woman that was running things, and that was his main actual wife, and then everyone else was secondary. That there was a very structured hierarchy.
Okay.
You have certain cultures where you had a limit of four, where you can see kind of like the Muslim aspects, and they don't always stick to that, but they always were like four wives, at least to the very limited knowledge of what I was able to glean on the people I talked to that live that kind of style.
Okay.
And then it's less of a hierarchy with the women structure, but they're all just kind of even keeled and right underneath the man. Again, it's very almost militarized in how the relationship has to work in order for it to work.
Right. So
You
obviously
have
you can't just kind of be willy nilly. You have to structure. I would think you would have to structure that sort of thing because I would think you
yes,
would be very open to a whole mess of human emotions. So I would think you
yes.
would have to live by rules stuff like
Which is kind of interesting because again, the hookup culture, the one that's really kind of lead going into this
that.
prior, the free love and sex, is that chaos is just constant. So now we're overcorrecting, and now it's going to be almost militarized and almost companied.
Yeah. Okay.
Like in a company structure, pyramid structure.
I gotcha.
Which, yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, and then that's kind of going forward. Offspring wise, if you look historically, it develops into pretty bad envy between the kids. There's only one dad. Dad has only certain so much amount of time. He has a massive, typically an empire he has to run, financially, or even today it's financial empires. Back then it was actual empires or city states or something like that, right? So
Yeah.
typically, you only have one guy really getting this lifestyle, um what's the word, at its highest peak,
Okay.
or at
Yeah.
least select few.
Yeah.
um and then with the kids, we see that we don't really get a lot of technological, we don't have a huge explosion in advancement in technology.
Okay.
We don't see really a good chunk of what else, you don't there's a few things.
And that would that would correlate with somewhat with the statistics that show that single parent households are far worse for your kids than two parent households.
Well, no,
That would
because
kind of
so here's the catch too.
okay.
So when you're looking at it when with a single mom, I think it increases the chances of the children either going to prison by like 40%. and then other things, and then a single mom. But when you have a single dad, the children are just as, if not more successful
Yeah.
than a single house. Now,
I'm
here's
glad you
something
said
that
that. I
a
didn't
lot
want
of
to.
a lot of red pills don't want to admit, and or maybe they've never thought about,
Yeah.
is that when you have an environment that is so mom gets first choice, that the few guys who actually get to who do win their kids over is because A, there have to be an exceptional guy or a man just running the house and having his shit together to the point that they're so exceptional that even the law hasn't a kind of like the way it's structured is they're an exception.
Okay.
So the reason why those kids are being so benefit is because the guy is already so above. Now, if you had where it was even keel and we saw both parents, and it was 50-50, and whoever, you know, where guys got them and girls get them, and mom or dad or something like that, when they're divorced and they're split, and we see these two almost in percentage wise, even keeled of how many of single household parents, we
So
might get a better actual number. So I
okay.
don't know. So even though single moms, it does have really take numbers, and then the very few guys who do get their kids typically have above average expectation,
Okay.
or
So
at
but
least seen.
so with the harem with one guy, one dad, right?
Yeah.
For multiple kids with multiple moms. That would what we're saying is that would the result of the offspring would be like a single mother for the most part, like a single mother household, right? Because they are competing
No.
for attention. Because dad cannot be with five families at once, right?
Well, I mean, it's again, it's kind of like this living situation. If you have where all the houses are all together and dad's always here in one of the houses, that's just how you structure the living.
Okay.
Living. If you're one of the guys who have a house in every port or a wife in every port, that might not, that will make it very difficult where you have the secret homes. It's
Yeah.
kind of close to a harem structure, but it's not really. Um, and then you have actual cultures where all the wives are, they're not separated. You have like the Muslim cultures, things like that. Uh, Again, they're not being pushed technologically advanced. They're not, there's certain things that they're holding themselves back to. They're very strong in tradition. Before they made this switch, you know, I think it was like 1940s, 19, or before we knew the Muslim countries as they are today, they were almost identical to America before
Okay.
they had this huge switchover. And then you still have kind of more competent guys
Okay.
that are produced by it. If at least, and that's the biggest example of it. There's other cultures that I haven't really dove weight into
Yeah.
too much. One of the most famous ones with the amount of women would have been, you have Solomon, you have Attila the Hun. I mean, he almost conquered, he conquered everything. And then one of his strongest strategies was implementing his daughters into the royal families. Then they
Okay.
all served dad.
Yeah.
So they all knew who dad was. They might have been married to this guy, but he was still the Hun.
Yeah.
And so
Okay.
which was one of the main things that his success is. It's kind of the irony is, yes, he had his huge harem, but what kind of helped make pretty much the entire east section of that world genetically related to him somehow was again he strategically used all of his daughters.
Okay. I got you. So let's move forward with the
It's good for warfare.
yeah, yeah,
If
I'm sure it's good
yeah.
for conquering the world, spreading your seed, and I mean, I'm sure it's So what? Let's move forward, and where do we go from here?
Well, I mean, you could just follow the ride. You can jump into the fad and kind of be blown by the wind. You can connect, like we were talking about. You're looking at a guy trying to be something and try to be the man they dream about, and that's finding a community that is like-minded and already kind of moving towards things. So you have older gentlemen who've accomplished everything that you're looking to accomplish, then they can teach you how,
Yeah.
or inspire you. and give you maybe ideas or give you warnings to avoid, hey, don't go that way. That's a cliff.
Yeah.
That's poisonous, blah, blah, blah. Again, that was more tribal language, but and that's your main goal. So if you're gonna do harem style, you need to surround yourself with competitive guys who are doing that. If you are going to try to do monogamy and try to do those things, then you need a tight niche community that is again going to keep everyone accountable. Because if no one's accountable, you're gonna have cheating, you're gonna have infidelity, you're gonna and that's gonna always be there. That's always gonna be a risk.
Human
So
nature.
again, yeah, so again, it kind of helps when it comes to, and it doesn't prevent, but it does help, and that's why we're looking at the harem that's going to turn into the monogamy phase, is because typically you have a bunch of brothers, and brothers typically don't want to sleep with each other's, their other brother's wife. It's a little, there's,
Yeah. There's
and then,
outliers to that.
yeah, but then you have communities who are doing monogamy and for a very, very long time, and they've successfully have been doing so. But then they also do arranged marriages, like in India, and then that's also produced one of the most financially successful hotel businesses out there. They've,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
I
So,
actually, so I actually heard a statistic, all right, about arranged marriages
yeah,
that they generally resulted in happier and healthier marriages. Okay,
yes, yeah.
because you're
I think
not just
there's
we're run by our hormones, we're run by brain chemicals, we're run by evolutionary standards. But when you have an arranged marriage, you have a whole lot of people making that decision from you from a third person perspective.
yes. See, that's where we go to Tilahan. See, all of his daughters were monogamous to
Okay,
some extent, at least with Sork, because he arranged all the marriages.
okay, yeah,
Monogamy evolved from arranged marriages to some extent, not 100,
yeah,
but what structurally keeps it together, its backbone, its foundation, is one of those contributing factors in having that societally be a guard of it.
okay,
Um,
okay. So,
and that's how we get the almost this circle of life
okay,
kind of phase, and it's
okay.
just a
So
big wheel going round and round.
I a couple weeks ago promised people that we would talk about gang banging dolphins.
Okay.
I
Uh,
made a video. I don't know, like a month ago. Could we get into gang banging dolphins for a minute, or let's ease
okay.
into it from this area? Is there
Well, there's no
pathway?
easing into any gangbang, but okay. Sort of just violent. Um,
Well, I mean, is there
so,
is there
so
is there a pathway from here what we're talking about toward that? And I
So,
don't mean
like,
it's philosophical.
when you have dolphins, you have the certain pods and you have the matriarchal pods. And then when you have the matriarchal pods, if I'm remembering this, I'm an amateur. My amateur studies is herbology, not herpology. There we go. Oh man, my dyslexia is bad today.
What does that stand for?
Um,
For
it's the
me,
study of yeah, sorry, it is the study of reptiles and amphibians.
okay, okay, gotcha.
Those I've just been involved with the hobby. I was a hobbyist. I've read, those were the books I went into. When you're raising and caring for animals, you need to know their behavior. If you're raising them to sell and to breed, you need to know how to, what to best support them and to be healthy and happy.
Okay,
And so those were where I spent pretty much almost 20 years of my life in that hobby and being an amateur of it.
okay,
Um,
okay,
and so, but I do enjoy, and I still did a pretty good, extensive amount of time in in general animal behavior because there's similarities. You kind of go through and you stretch. Now, if we go through, let me get some of my notes.
yeah. Do you think? Do you think this is
Okay,
a
so
good
if we
discussion? I
go,
like this. I'm having a good time right now.
all right, so we have dolphins. There's very different pod structures. We have the nursery pod, which is kind of more of um, your what's the word I'm looking for? Your matriarchal pod. Kind of like how orcas, they are matriarchal. Typically, you have the females that are out of the breeding, pretty much grandma raising the kids and teaching what they need to do. Then you
Okay,
have the younger moms not really being involved in the kids, going off and making more babies because that's, I guess, what orcas do. And then the kids being there. Sometimes they're involved, sometimes not. But those are kind of your nursery matriarchal pod. Now, with other dolphins, there's some species where there are males in the matriarchal the nursery pods, um, and they're not. Uh, and again, the nursery pods are probably like your medium-sized pods, and then you have the older females kind of leading the charge. But then if there's males who are extremely aggressive, have those tendencies, they typically get kicked out of the pod. Then there'll be like one, two, or three, maybe more. Typically, there's three, maybe more. And then they, being very aggressive, is their actions and their key functions, or just what their personalities are. They pretty much just they practice raping each other. So they get good at doing it with each other. Then they'll find a female pod, they'll kidnap, or they'll find a pod with other females or something like that, kidnap her, basically
So,
train
so,
her to click and be available whenever they want, and
so
they'll
I
grow the
can
pod
keep.
that way.
All right, so I can keep speed on this. The males get together and practice by having sex with each other.
It wouldn't be really voluntarily, they just practice raping.
They pre-
It's kind of,
okay.
yeah.
All right.
So it's sexual assault. At least what is recorded. It's like yeah. It's almost kind of similar, like in a very loose way, to how Spartans. You know how they were pretty gay for each other, and
Yeah.
there was very a large amount of sexual assault, both on the males, and then during your passage for them to be man, you had to kill a slave without getting caught. Because if you're caught killing another Spartan slave, you were killed. Then you have to go and rape or to sexually assault, grape. I forgot you do this on YouTube. Those are flags. A female of the Spartans and not get caught. And then there was like a third part of the trial, but then they have to do all three and then not get caught. And that was an aging of becoming an aged man, which
Okay.
which is kind of weird because their god mostly was Ares or not Ares. He was the main god of war, and the graping was like one of his top
So,
no lists.
so with the dolphins.
Yeah, so they get in that behavior, and it's just it's just their aggression is way up, and then their sexual needs come out, but there's just aggression. It's just raw aggression, and that's the only way they in the organism. And you can kind of see it with humans when you become so consumed with a certain pattern or certain emotion, then all your other emotions express, or all your other needs or expressions come out with that. If you That's something
Okay.
you kind of like, that person's just angry, and then sometimes they're aggressive in bed, but typically usually just kind of, we want consensual society, not
Yes. Yes.
that.
Yes.
So those are how and then those pods don't last long. So they can grow real quick. They'll steal a bunch of females. They'll grow. Then other males will become aggressive, and they typically will eventually kind of burn themselves out. It's like a nice big fire. They grow
Yeah.
fast and they die out, and they kind of like disappear. And then maybe someone else, it will start out again with a different pod group or a different nursery group, but then they'll go out and do that.
Okay.
And then so your nursery pods are your kind of your medium size. Your smallest pods are typically those aggressive gang member pods, and then and it can get to the point where they'll just keep going at her until she dies, and she'll drown in the water, the female dolphin.
So
So there's cases of that.
what are the sexual strategies like in general of dolphins? And do you think? Wait a minute. I guess I'm going to ask a question I'm very curious about first. You think it's the higher intelligence in dolphins that causes this?
I think it is the what's the word, the possibility, or the not the possibility, the there's a specific word that's better, potential of intelligence. I think unrefined, unmanaged, undirected engine for intelligence
Okay.
becomes unruly, and then develops these bad behaviors.
Okay.
That would be it. It's like if you have a diamond that's unrefined and it's just a sort of big block. I know diamonds aren't that big, but but it's a big block, right? And you want to build something, but you have to then cut and smooth and take away junk, and and make it something beautiful, but then it shrinks, right? And
Yeah.
so having the possibility of intelligence and not being refined and not being taken care of and not being directed,
Okay.
and then having a disorder or a dysfunction, something like that, be just functional enough to keep going, but not function like you can't like the pods that are much like gangs and much like in the in that behavior where it's much more violence, they don't become super pods to
Okay.
to to at least, well, again, my limited knowledge, which is a super pod is exceeding 1,000 dolphins, different types of pods, nursery pods, cows, bachelor pods. So your bachelor pods typically would be kind of where you get more of your violent ones. And again, they're not every single one's like that. You just sort of see those that it shows up like that. And
Okay.
again, not my specialty in amateurs with it, but you can again see where when you have a more of a balanced group where you have your male and your females and they're more balanced and the aggression levels enough to protect, enough to keep things going in a certain direction, but not enough to where they're just eating themselves alive. You'll get more cooperation and you have a healthier pod, and they'll
Okay.
build
Okay.
a stable kind of society to in a
So that
very loose extent. It's just
so that's how we
very
link it back.
loose.
Yeah, I got you. So that's the
Yeah.
link. Okay, I got you. All
Yeah.
right.
So everything needs a little bit of a pinch, and that's kind of where you go through.
Okay. So let's circle back. Let's circle back to all right. So we're coming out of the harem style. What are there and harem the multiple females one male that generally will kickstart us into or the byproduct of that, the consequences of that, so to speak, kickstart us into more of a mom and dad type thing, serial monogamy, polygamy, monogamy, right? That would be our next step after that. What
Yeah.
do we have drawbacks? So we talked about we talked about the pros and cons of the harem, right? So what
Yeah.
are the pros and cons of? Are there cons to the more traditional nuclear
Um,
household type society? Is it?
which would be great. Let's save that. Let's save that because we still have one more episode after this, and
Okay.
so let's kind of focus mostly on the harem aspect because we do need to spread it kind of outwards. Um, um, so
Well,
so with the pros and cons, that'd be great. We could do that next episode, really, with the monogamy. We can kind of see it. If we want to touch into some of it. Uh,
well, let's get into it a little bit right now. Let's just let's just talk about pros and cons. Could we come up with any cons? I'm trying to promote something here. So
okay,
I'm gonna look
okay,
at everything kind of from more of an outside perspective. I am all for monogamy. I am right. So
yeah,
I'm trying to now let's shine a light to challenge maybe my own beliefs to an
okay,
extent.
okay.
And I like to do that.
Um,
So let's
Cons.
just let's do that a little bit because we got plenty for next episode. We're gonna talk about gay giraffes, right?
Oh yes, gauge your ass. All right, yeah,
Yeah.
we
So
can. That's going to be
we got
next episode.
plenty.
Which also, it's weird, but it does support kind of where you have two parents help. Anyway, we'll do that next
Yeah,
episode,
we can
and
do
that's
that.
going to be the last. We're going to end with gay giraffes. All right.
No,
So
let's dig into the
okay,
pros and
so
cons of monogamy, and maybe we can do that for my own curiosity right now,
okay,
and then
okay, okay,
we will cover monogamy or serial monogamy, polygamy, monogamy, single more of a nuclear household. We'll dig into that maybe from the beginning in the next episode. But I'm just kind of wondering. Let's
okay,
trail off a little bit. Let's trail off a
okay.
little bit and try to explore a couple things.
All right. So with so typically the cons with monogamy kind of come with the again the economy, right? It grows so successful.
Yeah,
It typically in the harshest, if you look at like the worst economic standpoints, the Great Depression, things of that nature, where if you do not have each other, if you don't have build a home, you're gone, you're extinct, you're just done. So what's nice is that when really the shit hits the fan and everyone is pretty much starving to death, um, monogamy kind of becomes or rock to stand on.
Okay.
But then if it goes for X amount of time and we have this massive big boom, like you see like you have the silent generation and then you have the largest two economic booms, then you have and then that itself erodes. So it's either it builds up too high and then it erodes and it sort of just flops down. So the 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 big con is typically if you're having the households, you're having everyone kind of be uh kind of across, you start developing a larger pool of in a bad way to say it, dumbasses.
Okay.
Um so
But
with monogamy, it allows typically if the system is structured really well and you're kind of going you have people, it allows for what most people like if you have the harem style or the free love of because there's less protection, less things of that nature, you'll have more kids, more offsprings, more adults who to some extent can't survive in harsher conditions.
okay, I
Eventually.
like that fucking angle. I like that angle right there. I never would have thought of that angle. So
So
monogamy
you kind of
may have become too
see,
safe.
yes.
Okay.
And then we have a bunch of warning labels and like don't drink poison.
Okay. Could that be
And
because
then
we're not being challenged in a certain way, or we're not? So maybe not being challenged, but not being as expressive. Maybe as expressive. I guess I'm lost.
it goes back to the dolphins, I guess. It's the potential of intelligence not being pushed, driven, or challenged enough. And so it's
Okay.
kind of everything a little bit.
So if
And
no one,
then
so if we don't have a lot of men competing with each other for a harem style, um, that pushes society, right? So a
yeah,
bunch of men being driven, status driven, power driven, money driven, and competing for that harem style to get the women, right? That kind of pushes
to an
society.
extent, to an extent, it doesn't really drive forward
Okay.
society. It does. It's great if you have very determined, very aspirational individuals pushing it, then you have a great system that's going to give you plenty of bodies for war, that's going to give you ties and connections to everything because it is a great conqueror conqueror's playbook. Um, and Now it's kind of in that direction. You have monogamy, which really develops, or no, yeah, the one-on-one, which is great if everyone is kind of equal and we have certain traditions being kept. So on a very low status where there's not a lot of excess, it's great. But when you start building up and you start getting a lot of excess and you start getting like financial excess, you start getting um s- food excess, it it develops this way where the individuals don't really know how to discipline themselves, and we
Okay.
can kind of see again, and that then turns into what we just dealt with the last 80 years of the hookup culture and how it evolved into what we're doing today.
Okay. So what we have come up with so far. Okay. If may let me run this by you. Make sure I'm keeping up. I had a really big frappuccino, so I get all.
Yeah.
So we monogamy is good for a society in terms of safety, maybe, and in terms of
Yep.
more level-headed people, but it gets too safe and it gets. Do you think that just
It gets
human
fat
nature?
really quick.
Yeah, do you think that human nature just kind of tries to push us out of the monogamous type thing because we are always driven toward, I guess, dopamine rushes, new experiences, the novel, stuff like that? Do you think that could be Just from just we're just pontificating.
Um, you know, I personally do not have 100% the equipment or the research that has been done or needs to be done to really kind of make any real personal opinion on it. And again,
Okay,
it's not, I'm not
okay,
very much a professional amateur.
yeah, yeah, no, no,
Um,
no, that's understandable. I
um,
just it seems like human nature. We tend to kind of like dolphins, I guess, certain pods of dolphins. It seems like human nature. We tend to just lose our shit, right?
well, see,
Like,
this goes back into, if you want to, I guess, best understand it, is the mouse utopia. So
yeah,
if it
oh,
was
let's
first
go through
done
that.
in Russia, what?
Yeah, let's do it.
Sorry,
Let's
froze
do
up.
the yeah.
Well, that's
I like
actually
it.
what I was saving for next week. So
Oh,
so
damn it, you're saving all the good stuff. Okay, okay, we'll get into gay giraffes and mouse utopia next week. Those are going to be
which
the
all
core.
correlate because that's where you're getting which where you're getting the force that's pushing everyone into certain niches, right? And
Okay,
there's certain requirements or certain needs that need to happen. And then when we're looking at how cities are structured, how things become and become accomplished, and what the after effect is, or if like if your body's running and you don't have a kidney and you're not don't have a liver and you're not detoxifying certain chemicals,
yeah,
then you're just sitting there saturating, like when your muscles are filling up with
okay,
pneumonia, things like that. So the aspect of decay and things like what we're going through, this cycle of birth and decay almost, of different of these systems becoming fashionable but never going away even when they're not fashionable, is is almost a, and it goes back to the slime. It's a body trying to take care of itself in a way, um or as a result of us not participating in what we need to do in order to take care of our system, because you still have cultures that go past, that don't waver, 100 or even 500 years or more, don't waver from the monogamous or even the harem style, or
okay,
or you even have uh the free range love, which is the
okay.
hookup culture
So
and things like that.
in wrapping this part two up, all right, we're approaching the 1 hour mark. So in which went quick, this was a good fucking discussion. I wish we had a little. We're gonna keep it to an hour. We're gonna dig into a lot of stuff next week. But in wrapping this up, there seem to be pros and cons to both the harem and both the monogamy, polygamy, serial monogamy type, nuclear household type stuff. So far we got pros and cons to both of those two sexual
Well,
strategies.
all three have pros and cons. Yeah, all three.
Okay, are we gonna dig into the free love more next week, or can we
I
just
think
talk
I
about
actually
pros
did
and
that in the first. See, that was kind of the issue. I didn't realize we did leave the first episode, or would have talked more about that. The first episode,
what would
that
be
technically,
okay? So the free love type thing would be multiple fuck buddies, just kind of just taking sex not seriously at all.
yeah,
Just kind of
it
running
eventually
around.
it's like, remember how like you have lower intelligent species typically do that. You have crabs, you have this, whatever. They don't. There's they
Not a lot of
produce
structure for sexual.
they'll produce many offspring and then hope for a few that succeed.
Okay, so just
And so
not a lot of structured or sexual behaviors. No,
no,
no.
and then there's no guarding and protection. You look at the, like when I mentioned, you look at the current Diddy trials and all the weird shit Hollywood's been doing.
Okay, I
Again, those
remember.
are extreme consequences for the free love and sex range,
So what
or
would be
system.
pros and cons of free love and sex?
Say
What
that
would
one more
be the
time. You're
pros?
breaking in. The
Okay, what would
con.
be pros and cons to that? So
Okay, so
I can name five cons right now. What would be the
okay.
pros? Can we, from a third perspective, dig into any pros to that? Just even if it's just a
When it's
thought.
high, when there was the finances, when there was good, when people weren't being too stressed out with finances and things and of that nature, there's a feeling of a lot of confidence. There's a lot of Um, the civilization kind of takes like a very more relaxed narrative with things, and they're less likely for war. They push war a lot less.
Okay, there you go. There we go.
But
We
they're
got
easier to be, but because they push war less, they're easier to conquer. Because typically, the range love of means males aren't competing at the highest levels in order to get sex, that or partnership or any form of like human dignity. Then you have individuals who are just kind of weaker because they kind of just get it. It doesn't push. Honestly, I think it's the biggest amount of cons, very low amount of pros, if any, and it's usually a result. Typically, it survives because usually you have monogamy or the backs of individuals. Again, it's when you can't. Oh, the best way, certain things cannot reach a function out of 15 or 5% of the population and in those subcultures. When you are starting to have certain behaviors take over the cultures, it's just going to implode. It has to.
okay.
You
Okay.
have to have where 60% or 75% of your actual people are being functional in producing more than they consume, or it's all right. It's like with ants, right? There's a certain percentage of ants that are always lazy and they don't do anything. You can remove all of your lazy ants, but even your bet is there's again what I was talking about, this sort of gravity. It's almost like gravity, kind of keep pushing every organisms into certain behaviors, and that's kind of like one of it is even your most productive ant will then, well, if it's kind of like winning a lotto, will then go and get moved into the lazy pool. So someone has to
Okay.
fill that niche um,
Okay. So someone
in
has
the
to.
math.
Yeah, someone
So
has
it's
to fill
it's
vacuum. If there's a vacuum left, yeah, that's easy. So is this how I remember our last episode wrapping up? Is this how we got onto the porn subject? Because I think we dug into the porn making people also unproductive and lazy. Is
it
that
does
how?
it does and it's
Cause I'm
It
sure we
does,
didn't
and
define it.
historically, typically making sex like sexualizing everything, was actually again used as what's the word I'm looking for? A strategy military wise. So another nation would want to weaken everything, and then they would go and support pretty much back then porn, having people paraded and fucking on basically carts and things like that, and as athletes and there's other spots in that, and ultimately as they would keep pushing things going forward, it would eventually there'd be less motivation, there's less connection, and then as sexually promiscuously gets higher and higher and higher, there
Yeah.
you have less and less guys willing to die for anything. You know what I mean?
Okay. So
So you
porn is
you
kind of
lose most of the military, you rot them from the inside out, and then that country that was pretty much just flooding luxuries into them comes in and takes them all out.
yeah. So porn is kind of like a sedative. So guys
it's
don't watch porn
it's
too much; it makes you weak. And
yeah.
people don't be like dolphins. Is that
No, no,
wrapped up?
they're demented creatures. I'd say, yeah, dolphins are probably some of the worst behaviors out there. Also, they're extremely racist too. Dolphins
That's
are. If
amazing
you
because
look
Flipper.
anything different
And
to them, they'll kill them.
see, that's amazing because we see Flipper, and we see these. I've always equated dolphins with this friendly animal saving humans in the sea. But yeah, and no one ever portrays
Dolphins do.
the dark side of dolphinry.
Well, I know, but that's dolphin on dolphin, and with they see at us certain aspect. Like if you look at elephants, the same brain trigger for an elephant that's looking at humans is the same way we look at like small cute animals. Oh,
Yeah,
it's cute. We don't want to kill it, right? Like bunnies
yeah,
have lived just because they're cute. I think, um, even though
fast.
they're fast, but mostly is because someone complains or whines about killing them. And there's other species like that. There's other things. So cute is to an extent it's mathematics. There's an actual math on what produces the cute reaction in our brain, and it helps us survive. And so elephants will probably, if they didn't experience horrible things by us or by individuals like us, they will be like, oh, they're cute. Da, 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 let's not kill them. and I think dolphins and elephants being very similar on the same level. I don't know if
We
there's been
seem to,
research. Maybe they think we're cute as well.
but yes, we seem to have some sort of a loving outlook on dolphins. But anyways, let's wrap it up.
Okay.
Um, have you? How are you doing? Have you had any struggles this week? Anything like that personally? We will wrap every episode like this. So, are you
Oh, okay,
struggling with
okay.
anything on
I'm having a
any?
major restart in my life. Finally, I've been looking, for this opportunity. I finally got it. It's been a long time. There's some major factors and directions I want to take. Um, and I'm finally getting those opportunities to the what's the word I'm looking for? The gift of competitiveness. I'm hopefully
Is
going
it kind of
to
is it kind of
reach that
scary?
point where that door can open.
Is it kind of scary at the same time?
No, no, scary isn't the word I'm looking for, or I feel. I just got a long grocery list of stuff to do, and it is everything counts kind of deal. One mistake could pretty much end it.
Okay, I
That
got you.
that's pretty much everybody.
All right, let's wrap it up. You have a good day, brother. Remember,
You
I
too.
think I'm gonna once again say I think our biggest takeaway from this episode is don't be like fucking dolphins and slow down on the fucking porn.
Yeah,
And there are pros and cons to almost everything. It all maybe comes down to personal choice on however
yeah,
we live. So,
yeah. Some
okay.
people might function better. There are outliers in
Yeah. All
certain
right, brother.
spots. Have a good one.
You have a good day. I'll call you here in a little while.
Okay.